that, we used to have an organic matter level of 6 to 10% in our agricultural soils in the US, which means a carbon level of 3 to 5%. It's about half. Today, our agricultural lands have between 0 and 3% organic matter, or between 0 and 1.5% carbon. We have absolutely raped and pillaged the soil on planet Earth. And honestly, there's some great stats out there looking through all the ag lands on the planet that we've been using, and we've used up about 70% of the total soil carbon in our agricultural lands on planet Earth. Nearly all of that was used up in the past 80 years since World War II. So we don't really have another 80 years of soil carbon left at the rate we're going, which is why I mentioned that most farming is sort of like hydroponic farming in dead dirt, because it no longer has the biology, it no longer has the carbon, it no longer has the organic matter, it no longer has the ability to support life. We're simply growing hydroponically by putting N, P, and K in chemical form, and then you're getting out your crop. Are you really getting out health from that soil if all you put in is a chemical NPK? No. So I want to give you a very quick, how do we do it if we're no-till? How do we do a transition from one crop to the next if we are not tillage-based? Well, first I'll tell you, if I was tillage-based, which we did do tillage the first couple of years, we were organic tillage, and you would grow a crop, and you grow it in a whole field area, you get 4 to 10, 15 beds all growing the same crop or a couple different crops, and you'd wait until all 15 beds had harvested before you plowed the whole field, because you couldn't plow just a quarter of the field. It was too hard to turn the tractor around. Tractor turnaround rooms are challenging. So you wait for the whole field to be harvested, which means some crops harvested a month and a half ago, some harvested a month ago, and some just harvested yesterday, and then you finally plow it all under. Massive soil disturbance, tilling, turning it over, and for that 6 weeks you had no crops growing where the ones harvested. They are now sitting there just sort of dying and waiting for you to till them under. You finally till it all under, then you leave for a week or two and let it all start to decompose. Then you till it again to really break it up even more. Then you leave it for a couple days. Then you do the third final pass of tillage. Then you do a tilther and bed shapers. Then you sow your seeds. And then finally the seeds germinate and they grow up to transplant size. That process from the first tillage pass to transplant size plants is usually about 9 to 11 weeks. That is 9 to 11 weeks of massive soil disturbance with no photosynthesis happening and no economic revenue. That 9 to 11 weeks, you're going to see right here in our no-till system in 45 minutes, going from these standing crops to the next transplant size standing crops, and it was just 3 people, 4 beds, 85 feet long. So we're clearing the top growth, leaving the roots intact, not disturbing the soil, not disturbing the roots. That huge rhizosphere, all the life around the roots are still there. Remove it all to the compost pile to be decomposed. Put on some organic fertilizer. This was calcium and a little bit of feather meal. Putting on fresh compost, it looks like a lot. It's about a ½ inch maximum, because it's only 2.5 wheelbarrows per bed. Put the irrigation lines back on, transplant the next crops in. And in fact, we're multi-cropping. Oh, coffee break, important. And we're multi-cropping 2 different crops because one of the crops takes up a lot of space and grows for 3 months. The other crop takes up very little space and grows for a month and a half.
You can see a lot of exposed soil, like for instance, right, oh, it went
so
away,
we're filling up the exposed soil, watering in, done. Maintaining maximum, great. Maintaining maximum photosynthetic capture every single day of the year and maintaining economic revenue. That was 9 to 11 weeks for most farms to get from that prior stage to this stage. And we did that in 45 minutes. And that's happening 5 days a week on the farm, every single week of the year, constantly, turning over crops like that. So in the beginning, when we were tillage-based, we had this. And I hated farming then. I really hated it. We were tillage-based, we were organic, we were doing all the right things, and we still had this 2.4% organic matter, right? Which today in the US, we have between 0 and 3%. So we were right there, right in where it should be, 2.4% organic matter. Well, after 2009 or 10, we began trialing our first no-till beds, and now we have some beds that have been no-till for, this is their 9th year straight. And that means they've had probably on the order of 50 or 60 crops in each bed in the past 9 years without once tilling the soil in any way or turning it over. And so our organic matter, soil organic matter, is up to 8 to 11%. And the biology, I can say, the biology is way off the charts. The charts go from 0 to 3,000 units on the PLFA tests. And so 1,500 units is considered average. And when we first did the tests, our neighbor soils usually had 1,400, 1,500, 1,200, depends. And those are soils on our farm that we weren't farming. Then you go 50 feet away from those standard average tests into our vegetable beds, where we're actively farming and extracting revenue. And the biology in the soil goes up to 4,000 to 5,000 units. Well, the chart only stops at 3,000. That's considered excellent. Well, now we just did some tests and we're up to 10,000. And then we just did some more tests and we're up to 18, almost 19,000 units of biology in the soil. The chart's only 0 to 3,000. And 3,000 is excellent because the frame of mind that they're thinking in is so outdated and so based on a chemical system that they don't even know what to expect when they have 20,000 units of life in the soil. This is a
soil aggregate test. This is interesting. So one of the things that actually not the plants are excreting, some of the organisms in the soil excrete is called glomalin. It's really like a glue, and it helps create those aggregates that I mentioned earlier, those clumps of soil. And of course, the organisms want to have the clumps of soil to create their ecosystems and so forth. So an important test of soil biology and soil health is how well does it hold together, and put it in water and see what it does. So this right here, Paul, you did this. This is from our neighbors.
That's the vineyard soil.
This is what our soil used to be like. And this is from ours. This test was done in October. That was a tomato bed. It had had tomatoes in it for 7 months.
Yep.
And
no irrigation for those 7 months. Or 5 months. 5 months, no irrigation during the tomato harvest.
So he's going to roll it, and it's actually video, and they're both videos. Sort of watch and see what's happening. You can see here it's just sloughing off, right?
There's tons of root hairs, tons of little soil clinging to those root hairs.
Doesn't actually look like a video. It's just staying static.
And this one just has landslides happening every few seconds in the water. And I got to say, we came back 24 hours later, and that one still looked the same. In 24 hours, not one little particle had sloughed off, whereas this thing was just sort of a pile of mud in the bottom. So, well, actually, that's pretty good close-up there. After 5 minutes, this was 5 minutes of the vineyard soil sloughing off because it had no biology and no glomalin to hold the soil together.
And I would guess that that's still about, go back if you don't mind,
Yep.
to about 2% soil organic matter. Now,
Right.
soil, when you don't have organic matter, is otherwise just minerals, air, and water. And what you're really seeing is sort of like a silt or a sand.
It's minerals, air, and water,
So if you're
no
talking
biology.
0% soil organic matter, you really sort of think of a sand. Think of how much biology that has, or pour water through it. It stays dry and the water just goes straight through it. That's sort of what you have there.
So that was 5 minutes, and that was 24 hours. And nothing on the bottom, right? That's our soil 24 hours later, just held together by the biology, the glue.